KTN News.
Even as conversations on climate mitigation were happening at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, KICC, the other side dialogues were going on at a different venue on how African countries can leverage on climate change to attain sustainable development goals, especially in alleviating hunger levels by coming up with resilient climate programs and sustainable financing. Bildin Waliaula attended the side conversation and now reports.
Climate change is already having a significant impact on Africa's ecosystems, economy, and societies. In the recent past, millions of Africans have been displaced during the prolonged drought in the Horn of Africa, experienced destruction from Cyclone Freddy, and many catastrophes have happened in the continent. Drought, floods, and wildfires are said to worsen if the Earth's temperatures rise, and it's time for Africa to have conversations on how to mitigate climate and work towards attaining sustainable development goals.
It's a critical moment for Africa where the world is really listening to us. And so we want to make sure that we have enough space to amplify voices, farmers' voices, children's voices, women's voices, because climate change affects everybody, but it affects us all differently. And the actions that we need to take to get us over the line to reach our SDGs are very specific and very contextual.
The African Climate Summit is focusing on 5 key issues, one being climate finance for adaptation and loss and damage. Research shows that Africa will require more than $500 billion in funding for adaptation, and the summit is one way for leaders and civil societies to push for finance reforms.
Countries, the developed countries which have caused the majority of climate impacts which is now being experienced by Africa. So they're the ones, in the interest of climate justice, who have to put up the money to allow Africa to adapt and to develop the clean energy that's so desperately needed.
Another key conversation happening at the summit is the Africa energy transition, where African countries should mobilize funds to increase access to clean energy and renewable energy. The summit is also focusing on how to have sustainable and equitable cities and nature-based sustainable agriculture. The climate summit intends to come up with a roadmap to lower carbon emissions.
That we're running out of climate space now to meet the 1.5 degree goal that was agreed in Paris in 2015. To achieve that goal and to keep climate damages from escalating really beyond our control into the climate emergency, we need to cut emissions of greenhouse gases globally by nearly 50% by the end of this decade.
After the summit, a declaration termed as Nairobi Declaration will be made, and it will be a crucial moment for the continent's collective efforts towards mitigating the impacts of climate change.
The most important of why it has to be in Africa, because Africa is a global power, and I think that the fact that we're doing it here can show that Africa United can get its message out.
Bildin Waliaula, KTN News.